The world of gambling is littered with responsible gambling messages, particularly here in the UK, where they are pushed by every major gambling company. This is mainly, of course, because they're obligated to by the Gambling Commission. But we will hear everywhere, or see everywhere, messages such as "when the fun stops, stops," and gambling advice littered all over the place, such as never replace time with friends and family with gambling. And the one I want to talk about specifically today, which is only gamble with money you can comfortably afford to lose. Now, I want to talk in this video about why I think that is potentially such a harmful, albeit on the surface incredibly sensible, piece of advice. Firstly, as always, I just want to say hi, hope you're keeping safe, hope you're keeping sane. If you're new around here, my name's Phil and welcome. If you're not new around here, then welcome back. Thank you very much for clicking on the video, and thank you to everyone who continues to support the channel, be that via subscribing, liking, commenting, sharing, doing all that good YouTubey stuff, or supporting me through my Patreon link below. And with that bit of shameless self-promotion out the way, let's just crack on. Now, the line, only gamble with money you can comfortably afford to lose, I'm sure if you're a gambler you've come across many, many times, and it's one of the seemingly more sensible pieces of advice. But I want to kind of debunk that in this video, because it's something that I experienced on many occasions during my time gambling, and it's something that actually probably led my addiction to not only last longer than it far should have done, but actually cause myself significantly more harm and leave myself in a substantially worse position than I could have been otherwise. Let me paint a scenario which is very typical of my cycle. I would, more often than not, let's be honest, and if you're a gambling addict you'll know this feeling well, have found that there was far too much week or far too much month left at the end of the money, i.e. you get paid on the last day of the month, and a couple of weeks into the next month, if that, you find you've got no money left. You may even find that there's a shortfall and other things that you need to pay for. However, on occasion, and it could be because of a short period of abstinence, that a short-term dabble with recovery, or it might be because, yes, you might have won some money that month. It does happen. It would be completely remiss to say that you lose every single time. In fact, that sort of advice, the only one winner, you never see a poor bookie advice, is possibly dangerous in and of itself, because it leads you to believe that when you do win, well, all that advice was absolute nonsense. So sometimes maybe you do win some money, or you manage to string a couple of weeks together of a sustained recovery, and at the end of the month, a couple of days before payday, you actually still have a little bit of money in your bank or in your pocket. So you think, listening to this advice of, gambling only with money you can comfortably afford to lose, you think, well, I can afford to lose this money. I've actually paid everything I need to pay. I've survived the month. Quite an achievement in of itself it would have been for me back in the day. And I've got this money left in my pocket. So why not gamble? Why not have a bit of a splurge? Why not chuck some money on the football of the weekend, or have a go on the fruit machine in the pub, or pop into the bookies and have a go on the fob tee? If I win, that's great. I've got some extra money in my pocket. Maybe I could buy myself something nice. But if I lose, I'll get paid tomorrow, or I'll get paid a couple of days, end of the week, whatever. So no harm done. And again, as I iterated at the beginning of this video, on the surface of it, that seems pretty logical. But here's why I think it's a terrible idea. In fact, there's 3 reasons why I think this is a terrible idea. Okay, firstly, you are basically putting yourself at a financial disadvantage. The reason that we want to stop gambling, amongst much of the other damage it does to our lives and relationships and time and all the rest of it, is we are perpetually skint. We never have any money. Like I say, normally within the first week or so of the month, the money's gone. But one of the great things about quitting gambling, if you do manage to get into a lasting recovery, is that you can, over time, build up a safety net of finances. So anything that happens in an emergency, or a broken boiler, or a car repair, or whatever, there might be a little bit of money put aside for a rainy day. It's one of the bits of mental clarity. It's one of the sort of comfort blankets you can actually afford yourself once you get into recovery. Even if we put that sort of very, very sensible, level-headed approach of a safety blanket or savings or whatever aside, all right, if you put that all aside, then that money that you have left at the end of the month could be treated as your reward for not gambling that month. If you get to the end of the month with, I don't know, 100 quid if your disposable income left, or 100 quid of any money, let's face it, left, then you could use that as a reward for yourself for maintaining a recovery throughout that period. Okay, so take your partner out for dinner, treat yourself to that new pair of trainers, do whatever it is that you would actually thinking in the future when you're clear of gambling and you're in recovery, think what you'd actually really like to spend that money on before the gambling demons take over and convince you to spend it on, the worst of all vices. And finally, and the most important reason why you shouldn't treat yourself or splurge at the end of the month when there's a little bit of money left over, is because this will set back your recovery. Okay. Now, I did mention, of course, that sometimes this money comes from a win. Okay, but more often than not, you'll find the only reason you have a bit of money left over at the end of the month is because you've managed to string together, by whatever means necessary, and as always, there's lots of advice in the videos on this channel, but whatever means necessary, you've managed to string together days, weeks, or maybe a month of recovery, okay, which has led you to this position that you're in now with a little bit of money left over at the month. Why, being on such a positive run of positive behaviour, or dare I say a run of no negative behaviour, would you want to sabotage this recovery attempt for a short-term dopamine hit? Why would you want to reset your counter? And I've spoken before about whether or not counting days is a particularly good idea, but be that a hypothetical counter or a subconscious counter, do you want to reset that to 0 for the sake of a short-term bit of, dare I say, pleasure? How pleasurable is gambling really? When you can pat yourself on the back for a job well done, take this money, save it, invest it, spend it on anything other than something that's ultimately going to lead you back into this loop. And you do this 1 month, then you do it the next month, and you do it the next month. And you feel like you're doing all right because you're not having to struggle through week on week on week. But you're never ever going to find yourself in a position to have that mental clarity, that mental security around your finances, which is ultimately, amongst the reclamation of time and salvation of relationships, okay, financial stability, financial comfort, not wealth, not prosperity, not being able to retire 20 years early, but just the idea that you don't wake up every morning stressed about whether or not something's going to be paid. That is one of the biggest gifts that you get to give to yourself once you get into a lasting recovery. So why sabotage that from the start with unnecessary gambling? Particularly if you have managed to make it a few weeks without gambling, well, with that case, fantastic, brilliant, very, very well done. So why not just do it a couple more days? You've managed to do it thus far, do a couple more days, and then at the start of next month, you may actually have more money than you normally would have. And, what a treat that is. So don't necessarily take that advice, only gamble with what you can comfortably afford to lose. If you have any inclination that you have a problem with gambling, if you have historically found that gambling, takes you well beyond what you can comfortably afford to lose, then why risk it just for the sake of a very short-lived dopamine hit that ultimately is just going to lead you into a greater and greater hole, which at some point in the future you're going to have to dig yourself out of, when realistically, by stringing together just a small period of recovery, you've already taken that first step. Thanks very much for watching. Like I say, if you found this video helpful, useful, interesting, entertaining, any of those great things, then like, subscribe, blah, blah, Patreon link below, all the rest of it. But one thing I will say, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make another video this week. So I will take the last minute of your time up and say this week is the last full week of the month, which means for many people watching, it may well be payday at the end of this week. Now, if you are a regular at the channel, you can switch off now because you know exactly what I'm going to say. Tying in very well with the topic of this video, payday is a very dangerous time for gamblers. We often get to payday and then, as soon as the next day, we find ourselves punched in the stomach, proverbially, and back to square one, repeating that same old cycle that we repeat month after month after month and wondering why we do it to ourselves. If that sounds familiar, like it certainly was for me, then make this payday differently, whenever that might be, even if it's a weekly pay or it doesn't come to the very end of the month, make this payday different. When you finish work on the Friday or whenever it is and whenever you get paid, all right, make sure your money is safe. Make sure you cannot gamble any spare money that you may potentially have. If you want to go to the pub after work on the last day of the month, well, don't rightly blame you, I'll do the same. Okay, but take what you need. Make sure the rest of your money is safe. Don't be tempted by that quick 20 quid in the free machine. Don't be tempted by that quick bet on the footy, which will lead you to betting on the Albanian third division at 3 o'clock in the morning. Don't be tempted just to pop into the bookies and have a quick 20 quid in roulette. Okay, because we all know where that ends up. So stay safe, Stay sane, keep your money safe this payday, whenever that might be, all right? And don't keep repeating the cycle. As I said in this video, stop the cycle, and actually you might find yourself progressively, very slow pace, progressively in a better position month after month after month, and to such a point where those horrible 3 a.m. considerations about whether a direct debit's going to get paid or not become a bit of a thing of the past, all right? I'm not talking about wealth, I'm talking about comfort and mental clarity. Stay safe, stay sane, everyone. All the best.